Other than the presenters, all phone lines will be muted until we reach the phone line Q&A portion of the workshop. Anytime throughout the presentation, you can submit your questions via the chat box and they will be addressed in the order received at the conclusion of the presentation. After we exhausted questions from the chat, we will then open up the phone lines for any additional questions. We ask that you please mute your phone if you are not speaking. At this time, for those of you that have not yet included your affiliation within your username, we kindly ask that you do so now by locating the attendee box at the bottom left-hand side of your screen. This is so that we know which institutions we were able to reach via this webinar. At the top right of the attendee box, you can select the icon with 3 lines and a small drop-down arrow, and a list of options will appear. From that list, you can select Edit My Info. This feature will allow you to edit your username accordingly and add your affiliation after your first and last name. Adding your affiliation helps NASA understand the effectiveness of this outreach and the need to do more for future workshops. Finally, we will now begin with a joint presentation provided by the ULI Project Manager, Kaushik Datta, and the Program Officer for High-Speed Aerodynamics, Yvette Leva, of ASLR and AFOSR. Now, it's my pleasure to hand it over to the Project Manager, Kaushik Datta. Kaushik?
Thanks, Alina. So, you're here for the University Leadership Initiative Applicants Workshop, and my bandwidth is having issues, but hopefully we'll get through this. So the solicitation number is on the upper left, and the graphic that you see, we have had 3 rounds of ULI, and ULI awards have been made to groups of universities. So those are the universities that have been awarded in the last 3 rounds. So in this workshop, we will do a solicitation overview, and as I go over the charts, I'll try and answer some of the questions from previous times while I go through those charts, so that it gets you can see it right up there, and then you might not have to ask it later. In this round, we found that NASA and AFOSR had a common interest and found a common topic in hypersonics, and topic 7 is slightly different from topics 1 through 6 in the ULI solicitation. So we will address it. Yvette will talk to it in a couple of charts after the general ULI overview. And then we will have the question and answer session. All of this material is available on the web. And for example, starting with the solicitation, it's available at Inspires. There is currently a Q&A also up there in that Inspires website. You'll see it in a few charts. And as Alina mentioned, the slides and video recording will be available later. So will the Q&A. We have to transcribe it from this and provide the questions and answers appropriately. And that will be available also at that same website, and also with a link from the Inspires website. Some housekeeping material. When you're proposing to NASA, the guidebook for proposals is very useful. Please do consider looking at it. And then, of course, some legal material. The talk here is an abbreviated version of the solicitation, some of these charts. So really the solicitation is the actual legal material, and it takes precedence. So if there are some elements that you don't understand in the charts, but is explained in the ULI solicitation itself. So when you get to Inspires and you go to research opportunities in aeronautics, or called ROA, that's the document, that's sort of the broad agency agreement announcement from Aeronautics, NASA Aeronautics. And under that, you will see 3 different appendices that are currently open for solicitation. D2, you see, is Transformation Tools and Technologies. But here we are talking about D4, which is University Leadership Initiative, which is due 6. June 30th, 2020. You can see towards the end, to the right hand side. So this is the proposal that we are talking about. And if you click on that, you get to the ULI portion on Inspires, and you can see this where on the solicitation number is out there. The ULI Step A proposal due date is June 30th, 2020. And on the right-hand side, you see links. The main link is for the University Leadership Initiative. That is the appendix, which has most of the detail. But in addition to the detail, the ULI is an appendix to the ROA. So a lot of the ROA requirements do apply to the ULI unless the ULI says otherwise. So if you have questions that don't get answered in the ULI solicitation document, do look up the ROA 2019, where the upper two links are for that. And then if you have further questions, you look under the other documents, there is a Q&A for ULI. It was updated on April 20th and will be updated as more questions come in. We don't put in all questions, we put in only the questions that have applicability. And in the last round, for example, we had 5 updates of it. So these will as we get questions that apply generally. So expect to see more updates, so check on that. The next link is an interested partners list. This goes to a different website where I'll talk about it, where you can put in your name in case you want to meet, that sort of place where it's meant as a meeting place so that you can find partners or to work with. Then the third link under other documents is the NASA Aeronautics Strategic Implementation Plan. This applies to topics 1 through 6 specifically, and this is a very important document. I'll talk more about it as we go over it. And finally, one that really important at the bottom you'll see is highlighted is that the time by which the proposal is due is 5 p.m. Eastern on the due date, which is on June 30th. This comes from the ROA, but people forget about it, so I have it highlighted. Please remember that. And also remember, a proposal isn't submitted just when the PI submits it. It has to be approved by an organizational representative or AOR, and only then is it considered submitted. So you may want to avoid the last minute rush and try and get things done a little earlier just so that it gets signed and so that you can, after all this work, you don't want your proposal to be late. I'll talk to this chart for quite a bit because there's a lot of elements here that I think are important and I want to convey to all of you. So basically ULI started because the university faculty told NASA that, hey, we can do a lot more for aeronautics if we can propose the problems the important problems in aviation and solve them for you. So NASA started ULI and has challenged the university faculty to come up with their original, some of the hard problems for aviation and look at it at the system level, bring together an appropriate team to actually solve this problem, and then transition the research to the aviation industry. And that means either for implementation or for continuation of research. So the goals for ULI are all 4 of those. First is the ARMD Strategic Implementation Plan. You see the Strategic Implementation Plan graphic up there and a link there for it. And I talked about it. The ARMD Strategic Implementation Plan is a community vision developed by NASA. And NASA is working on many of these aspects, but there are many other aspects within the strategic implementation NASA is not working on that the aviation industry would love to get done. So that's why we're talking about achieving aviation outcomes through NASA complementary research. Then the next goal is to transition this research to the stakeholders for implementation. And really, that is the key thing: is that you have all these wonderful ideas. Of course, you'll publish them, you'll develop them, but also help transition them to industry or to other stakeholders, maybe FAA, something like that. We know that faculty work with graduate students and postdocs to do their research, but ULI is also has a goal of promoting opportunities for undergraduates too. So it's both for undergraduate and graduate students, and these are the next generation of researchers and workers for the aviation industry. So this is also an important goal. And finally, we want to improve diversity in the type of people who are getting work from NASA Aeronautics, and we wanted to reflect the type of country that we are. So we're looking for people for serving institutions and underrepresented faculties, and they might bring in technology convergence. So these are the 4 goals. Now let me go over them just a little more in terms of questions that come up. Sometimes you hear, I hear that, oh, I read up that NASA is interested in so-and-so technology through other means. That is very true, but ULI is different from that. And if that is the technology that NASA is working on, please do not focus on that area. We are really, when we say NASA complementary, we are really looking for something different. And that's the key part there. A question that comes up sometimes is, what do you mean by system level? And clearly, it's not component level, but what exactly is system level? It's a little bit less well-defined, but when you're looking at problems of aviation, you're really looking at problems that are at a higher level, system level, that requires solving it through multiple different disciplines. You have to look at it from the lens of, it might include safety, it might include economics, policy, all sorts of different things. So when you're looking at a higher level, that's where it comes from. Another way to look at it is also I'll show in the chart where you can go look at what the previous awards and how they are looking at, and that will give you an idea of what NASA thinks of this system level. And so all of these are important. And what we are seeing is that, well, first let me go back and say that ULI is a portfolio project. So it's just a collection of a lot of awards, and we like to diversify it. And all these 4 goals are important. And maybe not everyone hits every one of those goals, but as a portfolio project, we want to hit all those goals. But we are seeing from the last round of award that people are already, coming up with innovative solutions that they are proposing for all 4 goals. So just think about it from that perspective. So how does this ULI work? Basically, as I said, the university teams propose their own technical challenge to overcome some sort of an important technical aviation barrier and propose their own innovative ideas on how to do it, so that it complements the ARMD portfolio and supports U.S. aviation industry. Teams define their own multidisciplinary solutions, establish own peer review mechanisms, and the principal investigators actively explore transition opportunities. And we are seeing that right from the beginning and going throughout the performance period. Funding is typically $1 to $2 million per year for 3 to 5 years. Actually, just let me go back to it. One other thing that I do want to mention is that please think about this also from the reviewer's perspective when you propose. You may have a very good technical idea, you may have strengths. Make sure, especially in step A, to pull your strengths and write them down, make it obvious so that the reviewers can understand your strengths and the reasons why you're choosing this aviation barrier and the technical challenges that you're working on. So the leadership aspects, it's not just technical. We are looking for organizational and entrepreneurial aspects too. So when you define your unique technical challenges to accomplish these strategic thrust outcomes, think about it in terms of something that you can convey to the reviewers, and you can also work on it. As you work on it, you can show progress. And so you have success criteria when you finish this. All those things come in, and we ask for those in the okay, I see that Gecheng is asking, you mentioned 3 to 5 years. That's because currently we are not, in this ULI solicitation, we are not offering the 5 years. This year, this solicitation period, we are only offering 3 to 4 years as per the budget. And then from an organizational perspective, you have to look across the university, the different departments, other universities, and make sure. And the question comes up, is there a geographical diversity necessary? No, it's not part of the ULI solicitation, but we want you to talk about an effective integration and bring in the right sort of people so that you can build the team that actually accomplishes your goal. Entrepreneurial, here we are talking about exploring technology transition opportunities to the U.S. aviation industry. So you have to maintain connections with key stakeholders, understand their needs, and what we are seeing is that people are coming in with Step A proposals where they're already talking to their stakeholders. From a transition perspective, there are multiple ways things transition. For us, if you think about it, it's a home run is when you create a new product line in the U.S. industry. That's really great if that's what happens. Or the whole ULI concept is transition to U.S. industry. But we understand that not all of them will happen that way. We still think that if the part of the ULI concept is transition, that's great. Or even if ULI findings impact the direction of the future work, that's also excellent. The proposals are solicited in 7 topics. Now here's the strategic implementation plan, which topics 1 through 6 have inside. So do read the strategic implementation plan. It contains these strategic thrusts. What do we mean by the strategic thrust? What does NASA Aeronautics mean by these strategic thrusts? And what are the outcomes we expect? So the other thing that I want to say is the strategic implementation plan has changed from the last time. There's a new one out there. So please do read that. The first 2, safe, efficient growth in global operations, that's sort of like the air traffic management perspective. There's much more detail. I can't capture it in this talk, so you have to read through that. And the second one is in supersonic aircraft. Those remain roughly the same as before. The ultra-efficient subsonic transports has changed a little bit. Do go look at that. The new one is the Strategic Thrust 4, Safe, Quiet, and Affordable Vertical Lift Air Vehicles. So that's a new one. The in-time system-wide safety assurance remains very similar to the old Strategic Thrust 5. Assured autonomy remains similar to the Strategic Thrust 6. That was previously there. Topic 7 is the new one that we have this time. This is something AFOSR and we at NASA found of interest in hypersonics. It's novel in-flight and ground measurement techniques for hypersonic flight, and we will talk about that soon. So the projected distribution of what are the awards we're going to give. NASA anticipates investing in 5 awards, nominally 3 awards with 3-year duration and 2 awards with 4-year duration. So proposals are invited for 3 to 4-year range for this specific ULI solicitation. The nominal budgets that we propose, we ask for is between the $1 to $2 million range per award per year. But actually do look at how much you can ramp up, say, in the first year, because actual usage is important to NASA. If you don't end up using it, then my budget looks like I have a lot of money available and future awards will be affected. So do propose appropriately. To promote, as I said, to promote, we have, it's a portfolio project. We have a new new topics into, say, topic 4. So there is trust in topic 4. In topic 1, we have a project that will be going off the ULI. So we have a strong interest in topic 1 and 4. And one award in topic 7 to the tune of $1 million per year for 3 years. And this is for applied research. We'll talk about this more. And AFOSR anticipates another award in topic 7 for basic research. Just want to let you know that even though we say there is strong interest, it's no guarantee that the awards will be made in those topics. You might have seen, if people who follow ULI have noticed that in the past, even though we had interest in a certain topic area, if we don't get strong proposals and we get strong proposals in other strategic thrusts, we award all of them maybe to the others. So even though we have interest in those topics, we solicit for all 6 thrusts plus this topic 7. And my budget is sufficient that we will have annual solicitations. So expect to have annual solicitations around this time of the year. Can't be sure of exactly this, but around this time of the year. And again, the budget is fairly stable that we can do, 3 to 4 awards per year in the future. One last comment is that the selecting official does, these things go through a review and goes to a source selection official, and the source selection official has the option to look at the portfolio, priorities, cost sharing, and budget constraints when making the final decision. Technical challenges. So when you look at the barriers in aviation and you propose your technical challenges, there is no fixed number. It can be 1, it can be more that you're looking for. I had a question on that. How many is an appropriate number of technical challenges that we should propose to? It depends upon what is that barrier that you're going after, that you're trying to take a bite of and improve aviation in that area. So it depends completely on that. So that's why the number of technical challenges depends upon the distinct barriers that you're overcoming. Success and progress metrics should be measurable. Those are described in the solicitation by giving examples of how NASA uses some in other areas, in other technical challenges, in internal technical challenges. Then, of course, you have to bring in independent, innovative research activities to solve these problems. Clearly, since the problem is at the higher level, you're bringing in solutions that are multidisciplinary and have to be integrated. And we are open to high technical risk approaches, provided they have the chance of accelerated progress. Research products could include technologies, operational concepts, methods, design tools, models, or other technical advancements. We are also open to, just like UAM is a new concept that has come on strong, if you come up with ideas that come up with the future concepts that would be useful for aviation, that is also acceptable. And then this part, understand the global context surrounding the proposed work. So when you're looking at system level problems, you have to look at it from the other perspective too. Sometimes your proposed technology that you're working on may not work because there might be standards that need to come into play. So then you have to look at it from those policy perspective. And of course, there are economic challenges in terms of manufacturing, safety, reliability, all of these. So please look at all of those in terms of when you look at your proposal. So I know there are already questions on teaming, and I will answer those at the end. So the lead organization has to be an accredited degree-granting U.S. college or university. Team members can be, the team members that I list here are all found from the ROA, And so those are the ones that are allowed. Other colleges, U.S. industry, nonprofit organizations, FFRDCs, other U.S.-based entities. And of course, we do we strongly encourage historically Black colleges and universities and other minority service institutions to apply or to be team members. The fourth bullet, no foreign-owned U.S. subsidiaries and foreign organizations. This is different. This is unique to ULI, and it does not necessarily apply to the ROA. So you might have a NASA grant with an organization. Recipients. Another part of this teaming is that we just don't want anyone from NASA involved in it. You will, as I'll talk on the next slide, NASA wants to take a back, stay in the back and want you to show your leadership and work it through yourselves. So no NASA partners, collaborators, or peer reviewers. There are exceptions for using NASA, where if you want to use a NASA facility to do something, to do a test, for example, you can work with that as a facility, but not to do research. AFRL collaborators are welcome, but they can't receive funding from this solicitation. Okay, back to sharing the webcam. So clearly you'll be forming a team to solve these problems. We are asking you to look across, the different departments, look across multi-university, bring in industry, different types of industries, small or big, appropriate to the work that you're proposing. And provide an integrated solution towards these technical challenges. Make sure that you just don't bring on people just to bring on people, but they should have meaningful role and should be appropriate. We do want people, the universities to be mentoring some of these less people who haven't proposed to NASA Aeronautics much before or has worked with NASA Aeronautics much before, for example, HBCUs and minority serving institutions, and have a mentoring relationship with them. And of course, since we were talking transition being an important activity, we are seeing that inclusion of relevant stakeholders and industrial partners, either as team members or collaborators or peer reviewers, is one way of achieving that. Talked about this link before. This is the interested partners list, and people have already given me their names and have included them in there. And the way to get onto that list is submitting a mail to the HQ-UNIF-partnerships@mail.nasa.gov. This we have found, people have found this useful in the past ULI solicitations, and it looks like people continue to use this quite a bit. As you can see, when it was updated on April 21st, that there were close to 100 unique hits per day, including returning users, which was 142. So peer review and education. Here, NASA is taking a step back, and we are saying, you show your leadership and you create your own review process, which includes internal review process and an external non-advocate peer review process for assessing relevance, technical quality, and performance. How you do that can vary. Not all ULI teams use the same type of things, but essentially, at least there should be an annual review to which NASA is invited. And we have a technical officer that is assigned to all of these awardees, and they should be invited at least remotely for their regular meetings, which may be either monthly or quarterly. We have found that the successful teams have been identifying reviewers from industry, academia, and government, and they have been engaging them through the year and in the annual meetings. And in many cases, they're choosing these peer reviewers with an eye towards research transition. So that's just an observation. No NASA peer reviewers. And then for promoting in terms of education aspect of it, we are really looking at you to engage the undergraduate research in a different way, meaningful research work. Just because you have undergraduate students and they are part of you in your proposal, because there's an evaluation criteria on that instead B, you have to think about it in terms of providing a good way where you can integrate the undergraduate students also to your research work. So what is the NASA role in ULI? Basically, we are going to take a step back and we're going to look at your peer review process and take the input from your peer review process to provide the oversight that we are looking for. But and essentially the technical monitor and the rest of the team, including myself, are there to provide additional insight on market trends, offer suggestions for continued alignment with stakeholders. We can help, provide contacts to stakeholders, work with the PIs to explore additional opportunities for technology transition. We hold meetings at conferences or other places where we can have a networking opportunity. And then there are other roles that when you get in, we can see that we are more there to help you achieve your goals, and it's really your responsibility and leadership to take your project to a successful completion. So getting down to the proposal process, it's a two-step proposal process that we have found everyone seems to like. I mean, given the constraints, it's probably they're pretty happy with it. We have a short 5-page step A proposal that's due June 30th. The 5 pages is for the scientific, technical, and management section. And we don't ask for all the details now, just focus on some of the major aspects, overall objectives, partially defined technical challenges, and you can look at the NRA for the full details. So that way, we get a lot of submissions, and just to give you an idea, last year we got 91 proposed step A proposals. So we can't, if they were 25-page proposals, it would be just impossible to review that many. So we have the shorter ones, and I understand in a short 5-page, it might be hard to convey all your ideas, but please do try. And this makes it easier for us to review that many proposals. So NASA will review and make selections of step A proposals in topics 1 through 6, and they will be invited to submit a step B proposal. NASA and AFRL will jointly review topic 7 proposals and suggest the ones and recommend the ones that will be invited to submit a step B proposal. All proposals will be notified whether you are selected to go to a step A, go to a step B, or not selected to go to a step B. Just remember, we get a lot of proposals, a lot of good proposals, so it's really hard to make that final cut. But we do have to make a final cut so we can look at these 25-page proposals, and we don't want to waste time for people to write up these 25-page step B proposals, which will be due 60 days after notification. So NASA will hold an optional virtual industry networking opportunity, maybe in the November timeframe. And we have held this in 1 year, but didn't hold it last year. What we found is that industry offers insight into connecting between proposed concepts and the needs. So people have the option of modifying their thought processes before the step B proposal. And it also facilitates contact with them. It's an information exchange process. So the evaluation criteria, this is just the overall categories that are being listed here. You have to look at the solicitation where there are more details for each of these categories, so you'll understand it to that. So in the step A proposal for the 5-pager, we are looking at relevance, technical merit, and teaming and education in the weighted percentage shown there. In step B, we add the effectiveness of the proposed work plan and the cost, and with a different ratio over there. So this has been the covering the standard topics 1 through 7. This is pretty generic. And before I go over to the next one, where I will hand it to Yvette, I just wanted to say that, give you some background as to how we came about topic 7. Originally, NASA and AFOSR together wanted to pool our funds, 1 million from each side, to a $2 million total award, and have topic 7 be just like topics 1 through 6. We were told by the lawyer that we can't do that. We have to separately fund. We can't pool our funds, and we have to separately fund different proposals. So that's why you see what we have in the ULI solicitation, where NASA is funding one award to the tune of $1 million per year, and that's in applied research, and AFOSR will fund one and another one on basic research. So now I'll hand it over to Yvette.
Hello, hi everybody, and thank you for attending, and thank you, Kushik, for this. So I am very excited to be able to collaborate with Kushik and NASA on this initiative. Like Kushik mentioned before, for about a year, we were thinking of what would make sense in hypersonics that had importance to civil and military applications. And this is what we came up with. And like Kushik said, we wanted to do one award, but we couldn't. And so we had to separate it into one award that will focus on 6.1 aspects of this problem, and one award that can focus on 6.2 or more applied topics. So here, basically, what we are doing is in-flight and ground measurement techniques for hypersonic flight. We invite people to think outside the box, just like in the other topics. Think of what things we cannot do today, and if this opportunity fits being able to measure different variables, measure them differently, then this is something that might suit you. I am also very excited by how NASA has done these programs in the past, where they bring industry not in a check the box spirit, but truly incorporated with the professors. And I'm really, really happy that we can do that for hypersonics. And also to see the undergraduate students involved from the start, it's something that I am really looking forward to. The words in the solicitation, I think, are pretty self-explanatory. We were straight with you guys. There are no hidden messages here. What we said is what we mean. If there are questions, both Kushik and I already decided that there has been already confusion. We get that. And maybe we won't be able to take everybody out of that confused state today. We are willing to spend the time to answer your questions, just Kushik and I, with interested teams. Is there another slide, Kushik?
I can forward it for you.
Yeah, so one of the things that has been asked already is eligibility requirements. It's actually a pretty simple answer. We will go through the step A and recommend people to give full proposals. At that point, we will bin them in AFOSR proposals and NASA proposals. The people that we encourage to apply for AFOSR funding will have to go to the AFRL BAA and make sure that you meet all the eligibility requirements. Actually, I think that the requirements from NASA and the spirit of this is a bit more stringent. So there is nothing in the eligibility requirements from AFOSR that I think you're going to find hard to meet. So I don't think that's a big deal, but you do have to read the BAA and make sure that you hit all the boxes for the AFOSR BAA. And it's very important that NASA and AFRL AFOSR will jointly review and recommend what proposals to fund for NASA and for AFOSR. That's why we're doing this, because we want this to be a team effort between NASA and the DoD, in this case represented by the Air Force. Is there another slide, Kushik? Nope. Oh, is that for me or for you, Kushik?
That's for you.
Okay. So, yeah, these are some questions that already came up and we tried our best to answer. Do we have to address both outcomes, the 6.1 and the 6.2? No, there is no requirement to address both outcomes by the same team. No. Can a team propose to both the 6.1 and the 6.2 aspects? Yes. Yes, your team can propose separately for both the basic and applied research in topic 7. There are no limitations. And you can be creative and have permutations of people in both teams so not the same team doesn't have to propose to both the 6.1 and the 6.2. There can be permutations there. Can my team propose one research proposal for both basic and applied? Yes. Oh. No, you cannot do one proposal. You can propose to 6.1 and 6.2, but you have to write 2 proposals. So it is more work, but it is completely allowed to write 2 proposals, not 1. Can you coordinate for topic 7 that will address both outcomes? Yes, yes, yes. Coordinated proposals are allowed in this solicitation. And if you are doing that, it will help the reviewers if you mention how the 2 teams, in case they're not identical, how the 2 teams are leveraging each other in the 6.1 and the 6.2 arena. Try to make that as clear as possible, just for the ease of the review process. I think that was it. 3 slides. Yep, and I'll hang around here until the end of this. Thanks.
Sure. So just want to follow up with a couple more slides before we go to Q&A. I know you're mostly interested in Step A, but I wanted to talk about Step B proposals also, just so that you understand. I talked about the industry networking opportunity. It is totally optional. You know, the last time we had 7 out of the 10 teams participated, the other 3 did not. And it doesn't matter whether you participate or not. The reviewers will not know whether you participated or not. So the Step B proposals will be evaluated on their own merit. But we think the industry networking opportunity is a plus for the proposals to get some feedback. It's a very short 10-minute presentation and 5-minute feedback. The proposed budget, I talked about how it would be good to have accurate cost estimates based on what is needed rather than proposing to the maximum amount. Cost sharing, this comes up, and what we are doing is essentially inheriting the ROA requirements. Proposals may include cost sharing in their proposals at their own discretion, but it's not required. It's not an evaluation criteria. That does not mean that, but with cost sharing, because of the extra amount, you might do more work, and so you might get more technical merit or impact of your work, and those criteria will be reflected. But there is no cost sharing as an evaluation criteria. And finally, cost sharing may be considered, although has not yet been used by the selecting official in making the final selection of the awards. People have asked for what are the previous round awards and what are they doing. So we don't have exactly abstracts for them, but the previous awardees are all in the website mentioned at the top /ULI. And then for round 1 and round 2, if you go to them and you click on those titles, they take you to a NASA tech port. And there, each of these projects are described in a little more detail. So you can get a good idea for these projects Round 3 awards were just announced. Just the names are available, nothing else is. One thing I want to caution all of you, some of these titles do not necessarily reflect the type of work that they're doing. For example, I think I thought, at least in the last round, people were thinking that NASA was looking for centers of excellence because many of them call their titles, the proposal titles with centers. That is not what NASA is looking at. NASA is looking for a project with a definite start and an end, accomplishing a certain, getting an outcome that helps the aviation industry. So just a warning on that. And this is basically general tips. Please read the ULI NRA, and I suspect all of you will do it, but I'm also telling you that many of you have analysts helping you out. Ask them to read the ULI NRA before they ask us questions. Do read the strategic implementation plan. It's very important to read that one, and it will directly affect the type of proposal you can submit. Questions not answered in the ULI NRA might be answered in the ROA. The website for submission of proposals is nspires and grants.gov for AFOSR. Guidebook for proposals, that is there. So please check ULI NRA ROA 29, and then you can go to the ULI Q&A document, which is on the Inspires website. And there's a link there, and you can go look for it. And if those questions are not answered, please feel free to email questions to the two links that are shown at to the two email addresses shown at the bottom of the slide. So before I go to question and answers totally, this is a Q&A section. I will actually provide one slide of Q&A of the typical questions that are asked so that we can go over those first. And again, you see the list of the points of for the NASA, the procurement POC is Ken Albright. I am the technical POC. If you have questions regarding submissions into Inspires, please use the Inspires help desk. I have no information on that. I can't help you on those. So for those, please, Inspires is available. They have their hours available also. Similarly, AFOSR, you can contact Yvette at aerothermodynamics@us.af.mil. And there are grants.gov has a support number there too. So these three questions, we'll go over these three questions, which comes up quite a bit. So I wanted to go over it before we open up the Q&A. Can the same institution be the lead institution for separate proposals responding to different ULI topics? Definitely, yes. You can also be the same institution, the same lead institution proposed to multiple proposals to the same ULI topic too. So there are no restrictions in the ULI for the number of proposals that you submit. Our researchers are allowed to be members of multiple teams with different lead institutions. Just put the team members' names in each of those proposals. And this one comes up quite a bit. Can a non-US citizen studying, working at a university be included on the team? This answer is a little qualified. We cannot rule on it. This is a legal thing. But generally, yes, the eligibility requirements of ROA 2019 apply to the proposing organization and not the individual. However, the ROA also has requirements restricting the types of citizenship, the types of people that you can use. So that is the US rule. It is an export control rule. You will have to read it. And if you don't understand it, do talk to your own lawyer, because I can't rule on any of those. I can talk about the solicitation, but I can't talk about whether person A or person B is eligible or not. And the same thing happens with, is a certain company allowed to be in this proposal? The solicitation is clear that foreign companies and even foreign owned US-based companies are not eligible. So I think now we are ready to take questions. So Alina or Mike,
Great, thank you, Koshik. Yes, we will now be taking questions from the chat in order received, and after we exhausted those questions from the chat, we will open the phone lines for you guys to be able to verbalize your questions to the presenters. So first question, is U.S. citizenship a requirement for applicants? There are faculty at universities in the U.S. interested in this opportunity, but are not U.S. citizens.
So I believe I answered that one by question 3 in the last slide.
Okay. Next question, there is guidance regarding implementation plan for topics 1 through 6. Is there any similar guidance regarding what programs topic 7 is supporting? What is the topic 7 implementation plan?
Okay,
So,
I can speak for,
Yvette, go ahead.
yeah, the AFOSR part of it, and I think to a lot of extent the NASA part too, we are not connected to any program by definition. We are fundamental science that hopefully will be useful for anything that flies hypersonically. So yeah, we are not connected to a program.
And
Great,
I will
thank you.
add, and so Alina, let me also add to that. So please focus on the solicitation. What it says in the solicitation is important. I know there's a hypersonics program in NASA, but we are not connected to it. This solicitation stands on its own.
Great, thank you. Next question, does this opportunity have ITAR restrictions?
So I can answer that in the general sense, is that the opportunity, the ULI solicitation does not talk about ITAR, but if the work that you propose is ITAR, then you have to have the ITAR restrictions. And we inherit from at least the NASA portion of it, we inherited from the ROA, and the ROA also has no restrictions on ITAR related proposals.
Thank you.
From my side, and from my side, we can't accept ITAR for the AFOSA.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the next question. Can you describe who are the typical reviewers? NASA folks, university professors with no CIO, others?
All government servants. It'll be NASA or AFRL, AFOSR.
All right, next question. Are universities participating but not leading in previous ULI awards still eligible for new awards?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. Yeah, we have nothing, again, we don't limit it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question.
And there is precedence of it. People have been awarded who are working on multiple proposals.
Okay. All right, next question. Do PIs interested in responding to this solicitation need to be U.S. citizens?
Sorry, that question has been answered before, Alina, and it's the answer to question number 3 on page 25.
Okay. This is similar question to what possibly was just asked. If you're on a H-1B visa, in what capacity can you contribute to the ULI? Can you be a co-PI? Can you receive salary?
So we can't rule on that specifically. Again, question 3 is probably the best answer for it, in the sense that if you are part of an organization that is eligible, and you get paid to the organization, then the eligibility of the organization applies. But again, there are some limitations on individuals in the ROA.
For AFRL, AFOSR, we found people that are legally hired by a university. So as long as you are hired from a university as a professor or professional researcher, you are eligible to apply for our funding.
Thank you. Next question. Will NASA facility be free if we use them for the ULI project?
So no, the NASA facility, well, actually, that's a good question, and I can't answer it for every facility, but generally, facilities do charge. But what I can say is that you can get if you're awarded, then you can get the rates that is awarded, that is applicable to NASA, because you'll be a part of a NASA project.
Thank you. So this next question has been answered, but in case individuals may have hopped on late and may have not heard the answer, I'm going to ask the question. So the question is, can a given PI submit 2 proposals?
Right. And Alina, that's like you said, yeah, yes, they can.
Thank you. Next question, can non-US students work on ULI projects?
So again, if the students, I think if the students are legally here in the US and legally a student of the university, yes, they can.
For AFRL is the same answer, but for AFRL in hypersonics, we try to encourage universities to do their best to hire U.S. citizens. Not a requirement, but it's an encouragement.
All right, thank you. Next question. Is the intention for Step A proposals to include industry partners? The solicitation says the budget must not change by more than 7% between Step A and Step B. If so, is the Step B industry networking intended for partnering in a non-funded capacity?
So the answer to that is, yeah, there is no, originally, let's just go back. Originally, we started the industry networking opportunity with the idea that maybe industries will come in and put in some money into this. We haven't seen that yet. So yeah, we are not, the industry networking opportunity is not to bring in additional partners who will be funded by NASA or AFRL funds. Yeah.
Okay. I believe this question also has been answered. This is a topic seven question. For topic 7, could universities be provided use of government facilities free to test our concepts for innovative measurement techniques?
So Yvette, do you want to answer that first before I answer it? Same.
Yes. Alina, please repeat it.
Okay. The question is, for topic 7, could universities be provided use of government facilities free to test our concepts for innovative measurement techniques?
No. I wish we could.
Yeah, and Alina, as you mentioned, I answered it in the general for NASA facilities. The same applies for topic 7.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question. Please clarify eligibility requirements at the individual level for topics 1 through 6. Is U.S. citizenship a requirement?
Yeah, I think we have covered this multiple times, and the answer to this in slide 25 is the best that I can say for NASA. And Yvette has already announced, has answered it in a previous question.
Okay. Next question. What is the boundary for applied versus fundamental?
There is actually a definition, a legal definition. You just need to Google the definitions of 6.1 and 6.2. And if you really are very unfamiliar with that, I really encourage you to form a team that is more familiar with it so that they can guide you through those boundaries.
All right, thank you. And now the next question, I believe, was answered in some form. Question is, are proprietary work allowed? In the case, will information be released publicly?
So that's a good question, but all work funded by NASA under ULI is for dissemination, and you cannot do proprietary work. Not under grants and cooperative work. Unless there is cost sharing of a certain amount. I don't know the legal requirement about how much cost sharing has to be done, but I believe that all of these are. It can't be proprietary work. It has to be disseminated. I can clarify that in a written answer afterwards.
And for AFOSR, for sure, everything that we sponsor has to be disseminated in a public domain, so no proprietary, no ITAR.
Actually, Alina, I want to answer a different question on that one, just because it crossed my mind right now. So one of the things that, with some of these, with this question is specifically is, the reviewers are careful noting whether the problem that you're bringing, is that something that could have been solved by an industry R&D by themselves? So it's not exactly the same question, but it's a somewhat related thing. And reviewers sort of frown on it. And, we don't want them to be working on what the industry should have funded in their own internal R&D efforts. So we're looking for different types of problems.
All right, thank you. Now this next question is a topic 7 question. How can I find more information about Air Force hypersonic transport vehicles?
That was answered before. The program here for AFRL, AFOSR is not connected to any program, so we will not provide any information. This is all basic.
All right, thank you. Next question. Is the current COVID-19 crisis likely to affect the ULI funding?
So from a NASA perspective, I can say no, these funds have been already allocated to NASA and to ULI.
Same here.
All right, thank you. Next question. Is NASA looking to fund projects focused on short-term challenges or long-term challenges within the industry? This impacts how quickly the transition to industry can be made.
So from NASA perspective, I can say that it sort of doesn't matter. You can be looking at both of them, whether it's short-term or long-term. The impact can be big even for short-term projects. Impact can be big even for long-term projects. And so you have to look at it from the full perspective of all the evaluation criteria of how they are. But specifically, the strategic implementation plan has different outcomes at three different levels: near-term, mid-term, and long-term. And so we do look at all of them. We fund things for the near term. We also fund for the long term. So there is no restriction.
All right, thank you. Next question. Roughly how many Step B proposals will be invited?
That's a good question. I don't actually know the answer, but I'm only going to give you a rough idea. It depends upon the proposals that are received and the number of good proposals received and how many that we will allow into so that we can have a reasonable number of reviewers. I'm going to hazard a guess between 10 and at the most 20. That's, we don't want to bring in too many, and even 20 is probably at the high level. I can't answer that really, but just giving you a rough idea.
And that's for all topics combined, right? Because not for each
right.
topic.
Not for each topic. Definitely, yeah. That's a good point, Yvette. Yeah, that's for all.
All right, thank you. Next question, can we include budget for researchers in U.S. companies?
Yes, U.S. companies can be a team partner, can be a partner, and can get a sub award from the university.
And they can too at AFOSR, and we wrote it in the topic that we wanted industry, so we meant it.
All right, thank you. Next question. How tightly do you expect the industry partners to be integrated? Should a partner already be identified before step A is submitted, before the industry day?
This is a tough one to answer, but ideally, I would say your chances of getting from step A to step B, you should have identified the partner. You don't have to, but I'm just saying based on what, the proposals that go forward.
All right, thank you. This question is for Yvette. Are ASRL, NRL researchers allowed to be collaborators?
Yes, encouraged. You just cannot get paid from this pot of money.
Okay. And I believe this question in some form was already asked. This next question. Can we pay an industry partner from the ULI funds?
Yeah, that was just answered very recently. Yeah, thanks, Alina.
You're welcome. Next question. What level of interaction is there among award winners between rounds?
Oh, so I guess I should answer that. So we create, in the past, we have created NASA interactions where people can talk to them. But essentially, once the awards are done, pretty much the awardees are typically going based on their proposal to the success state that they have identified. So yes, there have been some small interactions where it has been helpful, but not in the bigger scheme of things.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Some of the topic areas are correlated in some aspects, such as topics 1, 5, and 6. Can one proposal address 2 topic areas?
So the answer is yes, but we want you to identify the area that is most, that you're, it's most directed towards, so that we have a good idea of where to try and get reviewers. And that's really the major reason for it. We understand that there'll be cross-cutting type of proposals.
All right, thank you. This next question might have some similarities to what you just answered. Question is, to what level should proposals integrate with other topic areas or address how technology solutions would integrate?
So I think that is not the goal. The goal is you're trying to solve an important aviation problem, and if it requires tight integration, so be it. And I would approach it from the flip side, looking at the problem that you're trying to solve and see what is the level of integration you need between your different parts of your teams.
All right, thank you. Next question. Can we include budget for the development of training modules or educational activities?
So yes, in general, you can, but we are also looking at university leadership and seeing if there are ways you can do it without asking for money for everything. We want to see what leadership can you show in how you can do things differently. So I'd encourage to show leadership.
Great, thank
Our
you.
grants don't allow for those expenses, just if they were thinking about topic 7, it's not allowed for AFOSR.
All right, thank you, Yvette. Next question. Are Step B proposals that are not suggested for funding be placed in a basket for future consideration?
So each solicitation is different, and Step B proposals who were not selected can submit again. But again, each solicitation is different, so you have to start from Step A and then, and a different set of reviewers. So, but I do encourage people who did not get selected in Step B to rethink their proposals in terms of the comments given by the reviewers, and to address those comments and make it a stronger proposal. I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't submit it again.
All right, thank you. Next question. Can AFIT participate?
I can answer from AFRL. They can, but they in topic 7, but they would need to compete for a different pot of money, and the AFIT people would know what I'm talking about.
So from NASA perspective, I don't know what AFIT stands for, but if it is any part of the branch of the government, you can only participate as a collaborator where you don't receive funding from NASA.
All right, thank you. Next question. What is the appropriate TRL for entry and exit for projects?
So in general, I'll answer that there is no appropriate TRL level for entry exit, that it is the problem that you're trying to solve and what you can achieve, what you plan to achieve during that period of time.
Okay, thank you. Next question. If there is no oversight by NASA, am I correct in assuming that there is no requirement of a monthly progress report or annual report or a final report by NASA?
So first of all, that's a wrong assumption. There is oversight by NASA, and the ULI solicitation is explicit into what is required from the awardees. There's an annual meeting, annual reports, and quarterly reports are required. So please read the solicitation. It's very specific as to what will be there, and NASA will provide oversight. It's just in a different way.
All right, thank you. Next question. Some projects of this nature are focused on hardware. Will system engineering or computational solutions be competitive?
So actually, Yvette, this might be something for you because it was from Amy Magnus at AFIT, I suspect.
Yeah. So to the AFIT person, usually system engineering is not correlated with 6.1. That question is a bit cryptic. If that person wants to contact me directly, I'll be happy to talk to them.
All right, thank you. Next question. Can we approach NASA for feedback regarding previously unsuccessful proposals? Feedback other than the reviewer comments we received?
So yes, but there's not going to be that much more because the reviewers are the ones, the reviewer feedback is the primary one, but I'm happy to talk to them. Unfortunately, if you're planning on proposing in step A, I cannot talk to you now. You can only talk, let's see. I am under the same blackout rules as it exists for all other NASA people right now in terms of the once the solicitation is out on the street.
All right. And it looks like this is the last question I see in chat currently. How can we participate as a reviewer?
We do not invite other people to review. It is we are going to select the reviewers within NASA and AFR or AFOSR. So it's not open to the general public. Let's put it this way. I'm assuming so, especially because they didn't leave their name on it. So.
Right. Well, it looks like that's all the questions that we currently have in chat. We're going to now open the phone lines for any additional questions you guys would like to ask the presenters yourselves. And for those who are not speaking, we ask that you please mute your phone.
All guests have been muted. You can unmute your line by pressing *6. All guests have been unmuted.
All right, now is the time. If you have any questions, you can ask Kaushik or Yvette. Phone lines are now open.
Well, yeah, you can say that now. We didn't know it at the time, did we?
Do we have any questions on this phone line? All right. Looks like there is no questions currently on the phone line. At this time, I ask that you please keep your phones muted. And I see that there is a question that just came into the chat, and it reads, is ULI interested in funding budget projects that cost less than $1 million a year?
Yes, as long as it meets the other criteria for ULI. I mean, we'd be happy to receive budget, proposals for different amounts.
Same here. For AFRL, AFOSR.
All right, thank you. It looks like we have multiple attendees typing their questions in the chat, so we'll stand by until we receive them. And also, if we have anyone on the phone line ready to ask their questions, you can do so now. All right, looks like we have a question that came into the chat. Can we resubmit an unsuccessful proposal from last year?
Yes, of course. I mean, in the step A, provided I'm assuming that you will, take into account all the comments so that you can make your proposal stronger for this year. Yes, but you can.
All right, thank you. Next question. Are early career PIs encouraged to collaborate with more established professors, or does that not matter as long as the teams are appropriate?
That's a good question. And from a NASA perspective, if you look at the evaluation criteria, you will, well, I guess it's for both perspectives, is that we don't say that there is no evaluation criteria that talks about the, how long the faculty has been employed, whether they're established or not. If you look through the criteria, you can see that it matters more on the background and the capabilities, skills and capabilities of the individuals being proposed for investigator or a PI. And so I think the second part of it is more appropriate, that it does not matter as long as the teams are appropriate.
And I echo that. Both the NASA proposal B step and the requirements for AFRL do want you to list the team qualifications. And there is not a specific question of how long have you been teaching or being a professor, but you have to show that you're capable of leading the team.
Thank you. Next question, looks like the last question so far that we have in the chat. It reads, what's the best way for partner organizations to team up with universities?
I can't help on that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how teams form and how things work.
From us, I mean, at least in hypersonics, that happens almost naturally, but because people already know each other. So I don't know the magic formula already, except that in my area, they know each other.
Thank you. Right, next question. You mentioned, and this might be one for you, Yvette, you mentioned that there is no entry-level TRL. Does this also hold for the applied version topic 7? This seems to be a contradiction since 6.1 is typical TRL 1 through 2, and 6.2 is typically 3 through 4. Can you please clarify?
Yeah, so for 6.1, the AFOSR proposal, we don't even talk about TRL. So basic science, if you must, is TRL 1, and even when you finish your basic science project, you are TRL 1. For 6.2, you could start with a TRL of 1 and bring it to 2, or start with a 2, bring it to 3. There is a flexibility on that. So I don't think Kusha gave some specific answers for that. So I don't know how that could be found as contradictory, but hopefully this clarifies it.
Thanks, Yvette.
All right, next question. Does your partner list include industry?
Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't quite get it.
Oh, I repeat the question.
I know. This is the interested partners list. I understand. Okay. Yes, industry folks can put their names into that same website, send an email, and we will put it on that list.
All right, thank you, Kaushik. Next question. Are we allowed to approach AFRL researchers for feedback on proposal ideas, or are they under blackout too?
They are under a blackout too, to make it seamless in the rules, not to confuse you. So they are under blackout too.
All right, thank you. And that's currently all the questions we have in chat at the moment. For those on the phone lines, if you have any questions, it's a great time to ask them now. Otherwise, we'll continue on with questions being submitted through the chat.
This is Amy Magnus of the Air Force Institute of Technology. I was just wondering what partnership does AFOSR and NASA see themselves having? How has it developed over the project?
Well, we already have a partnership. This is just going to strengthen it. I think the partnership is that we are bringing communities together, and we are starting to sprinkle military hypersonic flight with civil. And I think in the future, we have to start as a nation talking about both civil and military applications. And I think it's great to start finding common ground for both applications.
There's a good question, Yvette, on Alina. Okay, when Alina gets to it.
Okay. All right. We're going to go back to the chat and ask questions there. Let's see. Next question would be, AFRL partners are allowed, but also under blackout. Could you clarify how is this partnership established under communications blackout?
Yeah, so because the partnership is not part of they wouldn't receive money anyway. I think you would partner them at this point to kind of tell you if the idea is good, if they're interested and all that. If you move forward and you were selected, then at that point you can partner as much as you want. But for right now, there is a blackout right now.
All right, thank you, Yvette. Looks like we have some questions being typed in for the chat. So someone asked to make a comment. So we cannot show them in our list of collaborators on a step A.
So,
Oh, I assume.
So, were you going to mention something?
Yeah, I think they're talking. I think that was in reference to AFRL.
Okay.
So we cannot mention them in our list of collaborators on a step A. I believe it came right after that question was answered.
Okay.
Right. You could not show them as collaborators because they haven't said that they would. But you're free to say if you already know them, if you already know that they are working kind of on the same area of your idea, you can say that in your proposal, and that if you win, you would, seek out collaborations. But you are correct.
All right, thank you. Next question. How critical is having multiple university partners to success in a winning proposal?
Oh, I see that. Well, let's put it this way, that we haven't, the answer is not that simple, because it's a question of, let's just say the majority of the awards have been gone to universities with partners. I think there has only been one university team that went with other partners, and it was with a lot of industrial partners. So it is the partnerships that make sense that count. But but I have to admit that reviewers look at it, and because the ULI goals are for reaching out across multiple institutions, so you will see that as somehow reflected in reviewer comments.
All right, thank you, Kaushik. Another question just came in. Is there any advantage in partnering with NASA SBIR companies?
So if that's addressed to the NASA, to me, there is nothing in the evaluation criteria or in the proposal, in the solicitation, that talks about giving an advantage to participating to a specific company, whether they're in SBIR or not.
All right, great. Thank you. Another question came in. Will COVID-19 change NASA's priorities? For example, Boeing just laid off people.
So all I can say is that the ULI solicitation document stands on its own, and we are soliciting specifically, the languages still stands. We were aware of the COVID-19 when we released the solicitation, so the ULI solicitation stands. I cannot talk about NASA's priorities because that's a completely different question. I can only talk about ULI here.
Great, thank you, Kaushik. Before we move on to the next chat question, I want to open the phone lines again and see if there's any anyone interested in asking their questions directly to the participants, to the presenters.
Yeah, Alina, I think people are very comfortable in the chat.
I see. All right, I'm going to move on to the next chat question. Do novel measurement techniques in topic 7 need to be developed and exercised only at the university facilities, such as small-scale shock tubes, or will they also need to be demonstrated at NASA/Air Force test facilities?
So for the AFOSR portion of it, there is no requirement really of NASA or an Air Force test facility. But think if you were going to stop doing AFOSR work and receive NASA funding to do more applied work, I don't know that it's a requirement, but it might not be a bad idea to demonstrate your ideas in a bigger or more relevant environment. Kaushik, what is your opinion there?
Yvette, you just said it very nicely. I mean, yeah, I agree with you completely.
Okay.
All right, thank you both. So this is a great time. If there's any more questions on the chat, please type them in now. There's a clarification in the chat. It says, for vertical lift, do you mean helicopters?
Helicopters is included, yes. Please do read the strategic implementation plan. It will make it clearer for you.
And thank you, Kaushik. If there are any more questions, please type them in the chat now, or you are free to use the phone lines to ask your questions directly. So we have a question that came into the chat. It says, is the expectation that the center or research group be able to obtain further funding from other agencies after the project duration?
So Let me answer that question from a ULI perspective, in the sense that there is, at your proposal stage, there is no expectation that you have to come up with funding beyond your performance period.
All right, thank you. Next question that came in, what steps will be taken to protect our ideas if not successful?
Don't quite understand that question specifically.
I think I get it. And you probably have a very similar answer, Kushik. When we get a proposal for the reviewers to be allowed to be reviewers, they have to sign a non-disclosure agreement and a conflict of interest. And so far in my history and what I've heard from AFOSR, I don't think the case that somebody leaked or illegally copied an idea has happened. So yeah, that's our background.
Okay, thanks, Yvette. Yeah, the same applies here at NASA, that, the reviewers are NASA personnel, and they are not, they are reviewers under these conditions, and they protect the ideas. They have to delete it from their computers, all the things. But they do get to look at it, yeah. But they're not allowed to copy it.
All right, thank you. Are there any more questions? Please type them into the chat, or you are also free to use the phone lines to ask your questions directly. Looks like we do have one individual typing at the moment. Oh, comment. This has been very helpful. Thank you so much, Kaushik and Yvette.
You're welcome. That's the whole point of having an applicants workshop, is where you can ask your questions and get it answered in real time.
Thank you.
So it looks like we have multiple attendees typing. This would be a great time for you guys all to ask your questions now, or forever hold your peace. All right, it looks like we have exhausted the questions on the phone line, as well as the chat. And if those are all the questions, I'd like to thank everyone for participating today, as well as Kaushik and Yvette for hosting ULI Applicant Workshop. And Kaushik, if you have any last words to close out.
There's one more question came in, so I just wanted to know whether we want to address it, Alina.
Yeah, if you guys are open to it. And so the question that someone just asked, can the solution be regulatory framework?
Oh, I see. Let me think about it. I think the question being asked is, can the proposed solution be regulatory framework, that you change the regulatory framework? So if it's just that, then I would say no, but I think you can change the regulatory framework if there is some proposed work, analysis that goes into it, demonstrations that allow you to change your regulatory framework. And I'm trying to guess at I have no idea what the person is asking. But one example that we can think of is that in supersonics, you do a lot of demonstration that you have the low boom, and now that can potentially change. There's enough data and models available now that a regulatory framework could be changed. If that's the type of idea you're thinking about, yes, it's acceptable, but there has to be an arrow part of it. There has to be a strong arrow part of it. Otherwise, it won't fall into our strategic implementation plan. Hope that answers it, Newt.
Yes, you did. Thanks, Kaushik.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Would you like me to continue to read the questions in chat, or would you?
Yeah, I think there are two. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is, if we want to work on some analysis of advanced material and design, can we work on NASA's release concept designs?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there are, of course, it depends on what you're proposing. So it's hard for me to give an answer in general, but I can imagine situations where you're coming up and doing some advanced work, where you're just using the NASA's concepts and design to show something. Yes, I can imagine scenarios where that'll work. But I can't answer the specific question that's in the person's mind.
All right, thank you, Kaushik. So someone just asked, will the deadline stay the same if stay-at-home order is extended?
So right now the deadline is as it is. NASA and AFRSR, AFRL will look at it and examine it depending upon the situation. But we can't say what it will be, but we will definitely examine the situation.
Yeah, and I think Kaushik already gave more time than he was planning to. So in a way, we already have fitted that in. And also for everybody out there, right? Remember, guys, that the budgets from the government, the money still needs to be executed. We're not getting breaks on our side. So yeah, it's a balance. It's a balance.
Yeah, thanks, Yvette, for pointing out. I mean, typically the deadline, we have given close to 90 days for step A proposal, so that's pretty large.
Great, thank you. So the next question is, where does urban air mobility fit in your topic 7?
Oh, in the seven topics?
7 topics.
Okay, not topic 7. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so urban air mobility depends upon what factor of urban air mobility that you're examining. I mean, it could be the autonomy aspects, then it could be strategic thrust 6. If you're looking at the vehicles and you're looking at, then it could be strategic thrust 4. There are many different ways it can fit in. Or if you're looking at the air traffic management aspects of it, it could also fit into strategic thrust 1.
Great, thank you. All right, next question reads, is there any restriction on citizenship status? I know this question was asked earlier. Unfortunately, I missed the answer.
So Hassan, these slides will be available within a day or so. And question number 3, it was answered here, and you can look at it again. But generally, the eligibility is of the organization and not of the individual. But there are certain exceptions specifically in the ROA, which are U.S. laws.
Great, thank you, Kaushik. Next question was asked, what is the success criteria for education?
So if you're talking about from the ULI goals perspective, or is that, it's very hard to understand this question without the background in it. But if the success criteria for the ULI as a whole, that's a different success criteria But success criteria for a proposal is based on what is the innovative idea that you're proposing for education. So it's based on what you're proposing.
All right, thank you, Kaushik. Looks like we have another question or comment being typed in the chat. And he says, thank you. Hassan says, thank you. Are there any more questions? Please ask them in the chat box now, or you are free to ask your questions directly to the presenters via the phone line. I see here we have a few folks typing their question or comment. All right, a question came in. It says, will there be another Q&A session perhaps a month from now? We might have more questions once we start drafting the proposals.
There won't be another applicants workshop, but feel free to, ask the questions of the POCs that will be on slide 24. And as I said before, when people have questions that are of general nature, then I update those, the Q&A at the Inspire's website. And so feel free to look at those Q&A as you go through when you're doing your proposal, on some frequency, so that you can see that whether those questions have been answered on the Q&A document.
All right, thank you, Kaushik. Another question came in. Technical merit review criterion. Demonstrated ability, what is meant by that?
I mean, for example, I think it's pretty self-explanatory in a way. If you are proposing to develop a new technique to measure velocity fields, you probably should have some background or papers or a patent or something that demonstrates that you have already done the velocity measurements or that you are qualified to do so.
Thanks, Yvette.
Alina, did we lose you? There's one more question.
Oh, we might have lost her, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll answer that. So Hassan, I think you meant strategic thrust 3, not 2, because thrust 2 is for supersonic. For design modification, it's still a little bit vague, the question, but I would recommend that you look through the strategic implementation plan, and there are outcomes that we have listed with specific requirements regarding noise, fuel usage, and reduction in pollution. So those type of requirements are available. Beyond that, if you don't see in it, then you have to make your own assumptions or provide that as to why you need those type of requirements. Hope that helps.
Ron says yes and thank you. Are there any more questions? Please ask them now in the chat, or you are free to ask them via the phone line.
Yeah, Lena, people are dropping off pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. I think everybody said their piece.
I think so too. Let's say I see some more people type in the chat.
I think they're just signing off politely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, if you guys are okay, we can definitely wrap up here.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Koshik and Yvette, for hosting ULI, and thank you everyone for participating. Koshik, if you have any last comments to close us out.
Yeah, thanks everyone for participating. I'm glad it was helpful to many of you participants, as you have said on the chat. Really appreciate that feedback. The recordings, as Alina mentioned, will be available on the web page listed, and so will the charts. And Yvette and I look forward to seeing your Step A proposals. We really mean it.
Yes.
And I do want, yeah. Yeah, so hopefully, and of course, feel free to ask questions later at the POCs. And I really want to thank Alina and Mike for running this workshop. Alina, it went off really smoothly. Thank you very much. And this concludes the workshop.